What would you do if one day you were just kind of hanging out in the basement, and the next thing you know, you were doing the dirty with a spirit from beyond the grave? And then we traveled to Guyana to take a look at the story of a tree somewhere in the jungle. Is it possible that if you ingest the sap from this tree, you will become a shape-shifting monster with only one purpose: bloodshed? Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. I hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys had an awesome weekend. We got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's get started right away. First off, standing perfectly still inside Dead Rabbit Command, he's a long wall of pictures and paintings. Everyone give it up for Douglas Gallery. Woohoo, yeah, wee-hee! Look at those paintings. Fantastic work there. Douglas Gallery, you're going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. Douglas sent me a Patreon donation like in April. It was a long time ago. Might have even been in February. And I was not aware of it. I spent the money. I spent the money, but I didn't know where it came from. The other day I was goofing off on my PayPal account. So sorry about that. Sorry. I hope that hasn't happened for anyone else before. I just happened to see this, but Douglas, thank you so much for your donation. You're going to be our captain, our pilot this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially, I totally understand. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. Douglas, let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to toss you the keys to the Jason Jalopy we're going to leave behind Dead Rabbit Command. Drive us all the way out to Colorado. There's a house in Colorado. We don't really have a lot of specifics on this story. We don't even have real names. We do know the story took place in 2008. We're about to meet a young man named Jerry. He's 23 years old, and he's visiting a friend. He's over at a friend's house. We'll call the friend Barney. Jerry's like, "What's up, Barn? Can I come in? Can I come in?" That'd be the worst nickname to be named after a giant inanimate object. "What's up, Barn?" That's not his real nickname, because Barney's not his real name, but the point is that Jerry is there. He's meeting his buddy, Barney, and Barney doesn't live alone. It doesn't specifically say if it's his wife or his girlfriend, I'm not for sure. But anyway, so they're all hanging out, and then it's time to go to bed eventually, and Jerry gets to sleep in the guest room. Now, the guest room in this particular house, this would not make anyone ever feel like a guest. You know, a guest should feel privileged that they're over there. The guest room is in the basement, which is the spookiest place of any house. Best case scenario, you're going to have rats or like a vegetable garden. Like somebody like planted beets down there at some point back in the old-timey days when the basement was built. You had like farmers and stuff being like, Martha, where do I put all these potatoes we grew? And Martha's like, "In the basement. I'm gonna keep them cold." The rats will eat most of them, but you know, the ones that they don't eat, they'll be cold. Anyway, I actually Colorado does have tornadoes from time to time. It may not have been a root cellar. It may have been a save our life cellar. But what's the difference between a cellar and a basement? The point is that Jerry's over there. He's hanging out with his buddy. They make him sleep in the spookiest part of the house, right? Best case scenario, potatoes and rats. Worst case scenario, ghosts and Freddy Krueger. And Jerry's like, okay. So he goes downstairs. He walks downstairs. And, you know, it's a room, right? Has a bed and all that stuff. What more can he hope for? Maybe a room upstairs, but he didn't get one. So he goes to sleep that first night. And Jerry goes, "The first night that I spent the night in the basement, this boggles my mind. Not the paranormal aspect, but I don't know how we figured this out. Jerry said, I'm 23 years old. I'm sleeping in my buddy's basement. Good old Barnes basement. And the first night I was there, I had 4 wet dreams. I ejaculated. You're like, Jason, I know what a wet dream is. I don't know, maybe not everybody knows what it is. Jerry, as he was sleeping that first night, he ejaculated 4 different times in his sleep. Here's my question. How does he know? We'll get to the paranormal thing in a second. But how would you know that? How would you know? You like wake up, you're like, yep, it was at least 4. His underwear is completely like solidified on his body. He's walking like a Ken doll. He's like, yes, that was at least 4. My underwear is now crusty and indestructible. I don't know how he would know he had that exact number. But you're like, Jason, it doesn't matter. Get to the paranormal. To get to the paranormal part. He had 4 separate wet dreams. So he woke up, he ejaculated 4 times in his sleep. Unless he woke up after each time. He could be like, okay, that was the 3rd time, but I really need to get some sleep. I have a busy day tomorrow. Anyway, so he's like, oh, not 4 times. Maybe he had 4 different super sexy dreams. Maybe, I don't know else how he would figure that out. He's videotaping himself sleeping. He's like, yep, that's another stain on the good old boxerinos. I don't know, but anyways, he had 4 separate wet dreams. Now, he just woke up and he's like, he asked good old Barney, hey, you got a washer machine here, right? He's like, yeah, of course I have a washer machine. I have a house. Okay. I got it. I'm only going to wash 1 article of clothing. They're like, what? He had 4 separate wet dreams, but he doesn't tell anybody because that's definitely not something you would mention when you're over at your buddy's house. You're like, hey, man, guess what happened yesterday? Last night, to be specific, I ejaculated 4 times in your basement. You wouldn't mention it. But anyway, so they go about their day. He's walking funny. He's like, he couldn't wash his underwear. He's all walking funny. He can't bend at the hips. When he does, you hear like a crackling noise, like he's sitting on a paper bag. Anyways, that night, it's time to go to bed, right? That's what happens. You got to go back to sleep. And he's like, good night, Barney. Good night, wife and or girlfriend. He walks into the basement and he's like, well, I'm 23 years old. I'm kind of at my sexual prime. 4 wet dreams. It's been a long time since I've had that many wet dreams. He actually states that he really hadn't had any wet dreams since he was in puberty. When he was a teenager, a younger man, he would have them quite often. But he goes, since I got out of puberty, I'd probably have 1 or 2 wet dreams a year. This guy's paying a lot of attention. I couldn't even begin to tell you when the last time I had one, but he said I tend to have 1 to 2 a year. It's like, oh, it's the summer solstice. It's time for my yearly ejaculation in my sleep. He goes, I normally don't have them anymore, but I had 4 last night. Well, tonight will surely be different. And he goes to sleep. And that night, the second night, he had 3 wet dreams. He had 3 nocturnal ejaculations. Against his will, right? Otherwise, then you're just playing with yourself. But for him, he was like, oh no, the torment. And he wakes up the next morning and he's like, hey, Barney boy, I got to tell you something. Barney has no idea what could possibly be coming out of his buddy's mouth. Jerry goes, the first night I was down there, I had 4 wet dreams. Imagine if your house guest said this. Your dad is spending the night. Hey, buddy, we're going to spend the weekend together going fishing. And then he wakes up the next morning and he's like, hey, Slugger, I got to tell you something. I had 4 wet dreams last night. You're like, Dad, no. Imagine you're hanging out with someone and they go, hey, I was in your basement last night and I had 4 wet dreams. And then I sat and I ate all your food. You're like touching all the bagels. You're like, oh, not this bagel. How's this donut? Nom, nom, nom. He's rubbing the meat patties for the barbecue. He goes, I had 4 wet dreams the night before. The night before we had that potluck. And then last night, I had 3 wet dreams. I don't feel comfortable being in your basement. I seem to be. First off, what's the complaint, really? He goes, I don't really feel comfortable sleeping in your basement. I've had 7 wet dreams in the past 2 days. That's normally take me 7 years to have that. And that's when Barney says, oh, man, that's actually really unfortunate. We were hoping that wouldn't happen. Jerry's like, what? And he goes, yeah. Barney goes, yeah. We think that the basement is haunted. And We've gotten the impression that it's a, quote, female entity with just this really bad vibe, really dark energy. So thank you for being our guinea pig. We were hoping that you would be able to sleep down there, but apparently you can't. So then Jerry did start sleeping at a different room in the house. They didn't go well. Sorry, you're already down there. Kick him down there. Kick him down the stairs and lock the door. Let us know how it goes tonight. It's an interesting story. He says, that when my buddy said, hey, it's a female entity, has some bad energy, Jerry tried asking more questions about it, and Barney didn't want to talk about it at all. He just would be like, nope, not going to talk about it. I'm assuming you have to use the washing machine again. But other than that, I don't want to talk about it. And the washing machine's downstairs, and it only runs at night, oddly enough. He didn't want to talk about it. The buddy, Barney, did not want to give any more information on it. So really, Jerry was kind of left with the question. This is what he posted this as: did I get laid by a ghost? You have this idea that, 2008 was, 15 years ago, roughly? About 15 years ago. So now, he'd be 38 years old. We're going to learn in a second that Jerry is married as well now. But at the time, like I said, you're in your sexual prime. Like, everything's ready to go at any given moment. For most dudes, I know a lot of people can blow it out from watching too much porn. It just doesn't work as well as it used to. But generally speaking, when you're in your 20s, then that's when you are at your sexual prime for a dude. So you could chalk it up to that. You could chalk it up to, him just being a dude. But he also says, I was only having one wet dream a year for quite a while. Past couple of years at least, he said, after he got out of puberty, so maybe 10 years, right? He's been just having one a year, and now he has 7 in 2 days. So he's wondering, was there some sort of succubus, or maybe not even that power level? Maybe there is a female entity down there who is getting you off in your sleep, who may be feeding off of your sexual energy. The whole thing with the succubus is they're doing it with a specific point where there's 2 different theories. One is that they're feeding off your sexual entity, which would be something that this creature could be doing. The other thing is that they're trying to get impregnated by you to give birth to more hellspawn. You're actually very similar to the alien interbreeding programs we come across, right? When we look at alien lore, that's a big component of it. But we don't know, first off, we don't know if that's the case, if this guy actually was being assaulted by a ghost in his sleep. And if that's the case, was it a succubus or just a ghost? We don't know. If we don't have the exact address for this place, people would probably be like, I'll research that. Zach Baggins is like, I'll handle this investigation on my own, guys. No cameras either. Plus, I'm going to be down here for 2 weeks. It's going to be a hardcore investigation. We don't know. And this was an interesting one to research, too, because although the fact that I truly do hate Reddit, I think it's a horrific and horrible website for all involved, it does give me the ability to look at people's posting history in the sense that when someone posts something like this, I can start going through their posting history to see, do they talk about this stuff all the time? Do they have all these crazy paranormal experiences? And if so, my belief meter gets depleted pretty quickly. But then every so often I come across something like this. This was posted online by a guy going by the name Exact Classroom 2793, and I find it so odd what people are willing to put online that's truly trackable. And to make things even weirder, I thought this was a super interesting tidbit, and it could actually be that something did happen down there to him, but it wasn't just him getting off 7 times in the middle of the night. Something may still be attached to him and is putting him on a crash course to really, really ruin his life. This is crazy. So remember, that story happened back in 2008. We now know, because I looked around his posting history, he goes by the name Exact Classroom 2793. We know now that he's married. He makes references in these other posts to him being married. And I won't say it's his number one place that he posts all the time, but because I don't look through all of them, but he does post a lot, more than most people would. In the happy ending massage subreddit. If you don't know what a happy ending massage is, that's where you go to a massage parlor and they jerk you off. to put that's just, I couldn't really figure out another way to put it any more bluntly. You go there, it's not like you go there and you get, oh man, my back's really tense from working all those hours on the construction site. Hey, can you rub my shoulders for an hour? I mean, they could, but it's the happy ending. It's the ending of it all. So then you just roll over and you're like, finish me off, babe. That is a happy ending massage. So he posts a lot in this subreddit. Here's the thing. This is so weird. You have different levels of people who get masturbated in public. You could do... I don't even know how to start this stratification of people. Let me put it this way. There may be people out there may be dudes out there who are like, you know what, I've heard a lot about these happy ending massages. I want to try it out. So then you go, and I don't even know how much it costs, but let's say $50 or whatever. You go there, you drop $50. Someone jerks you off, and then you get up and go, okay, I guess it was worth $50. I could have done that at home for free, but whatever. And then you leave and you never come back. Then there are people who, kind of make a regular habit of it, but they're not super into it. That was me with strip clubs, right? There was back in the day in Sacramento. I'd go to strip clubs, I don't know, a couple times a year. And as I got older, I went less and less. But that's kind of where I was at. I wasn't against strip clubs. I enjoyed them, but I didn't go all the time. It was just something we would do occasionally. But then there are people who are super into it. And then, so there's people who do that with the happy ending massage. They maybe just go a couple times a year. But then there are people who are so into it, they know the culture, they know the code. And that's where this dude's at. So remember, in 2008, this female entity was giving him wet dreams. He had 7 of them in 2 days. Nowadays, he's married, and he'll post online, hey, my wife was out of town last week, and so I went to the happy ending massage parlor. That's not what they're called. That's not on the sign, but I went to the massage parlor. And so whenever he has an opportunity, it appears based on his posting history, he goes and gets masturbated by another woman while his wife's out of town. And that's not right. That's cheating, prostitution. But he's also super into these codes. Let me read you this post. I can barely make sense of it. I can barely make sense of this because I'm not part of that subculture. He posts this. He goes, quote, the MMS, which I'm assuming that means madams, maybe, because of prostitution. The MMS tried to upsell me a forehand. Is that where you get 2 people? Hey, I'm going to say right off the bat, I don't know if it's just me. I couldn't do you could get 1 hand. I don't know where the other 3 hands are going. If you're long enough, that it takes 2 people and 4 hands. Hey man, more power to you, buddy. But I have no idea what those other 3 hands would do in my case. At all. They're shuffling cards and one of them's drinking a glass of lemonade. Like, that's too... So maybe I'm guessing that's slang too, but the MMS tried to upsell me a forehand, and I passed. My nerves and my anxiety took a hard pass on that, so I have no idea what a forehand is. And then, this is what I'm talking about with the code. He goes, quote, we settled on the price, and she gave me DATY, and we 6-9'd until I COHF. I can figure out what that last one is because her next line, the next thing he writes is, quote, she laughed and said good for face. So I can kind of figure out where COHF is. But what in the world is a DATY? I've never heard of that. I've never heard that phrase before. Maybe that's some new phrase like Riz. Well, he's in his 40s now. But he might have more Riz than I do. We 69'd. Again, I have to say, that's pretty disgusting, dude. That's pretty disgusting. Because the second before you got there was another dude messing around with this girl. He's married. I get it. Not, I've watched enough episodes of Married with Children. I know married couples don't have a lot of sex, but You're really rolling the dice, bro. You're going to catch something and you're going to give it to your wife, or your wife is just going to find out because you post about it all the time on Reddit, dude. She's going to find out. She's going to take half your stuff. Like, this guy is playing with fire. And the question is, was he always like this, or was it his possibly demonic sexual experiences in that basement? Did they turn him into this? Is it possible he was always hypersexualized and that's why this entity came onto him for those 2 nights? Sure. The fact that Barney didn't want to talk about it at all makes me wonder if him or other friends also experienced this. Because if it was like, yeah, I went down to the basement and like paint cans were floating around, hit me in the head and stuff like that, I had to beat him off with a broom. No pun intended. There's other beating off going down there as well, but you would explain that. But you probably, like, if your friend goes, wow, I heard your basement's haunted, and you're like, yeah, it probably is. And you're like, what happened down there? Would you say, well, I got masturbated by a ghost multiple times while I was down there. I was trying to fix the washing machine, and she wouldn't leave me alone. You wouldn't tell people that. You wouldn't tell people that. So it could be that it wasn't just Jerry, that this was happening to multiple people in this basement. Or other people could have just sensed the energy, but it attached to Jerry because he was so over-sexualized. Is it possible that this behavior, where he's going to these massage parlors, he's cheating on his wife, he's paying for sex, he's going to these massage parlors, he's engaging in very, very risky behavior. Not just legally, but definitely morally, because he's cheating on his wife. If he was single, it'd be a different thing. But legally, he could get arrested. Morally, you could even argue there could be a human trafficking component in this particular situation. And then just getting disease. Is it possible that the demon is still attached to him? Like, again, it's chicken and egg. We know the story took place in 2008. We don't know anything about him before that, really. I don't think he was going into massage parlors before that, but it's interesting to take a look at the trajectory since. Totally normal people go to massage parlors, right? You don't have to be possessed by a demon or a succubus or something to go to a massage parlor, but he seems to be really deep in the culture. The fact that he's popping out this terminology makes me think that that's where we're at. And I'm sure Douglas is like, I wish you hadn't found my PayPal donation for a couple more weeks. That was a disgusting episode. Thanks for saying my name on the podcast, by the way. Douglas, let's go ahead and toss you the keys to the Carpenter copter. We are going to leave behind this massage parlor. We're flying all the way out, too. I'm going to change. I don't have time to tell the Guyana story. It's really cool, but it's long. We're going to fly all the way out to Florida. We're headed out to Florida. Specifically, we're headed out to Winter Park, Florida. It's October 8th, 1998. It's 5 in the morning. June wakes up for work. She's yawning. She's stretching. She goes, I had some weird dreams last night. She wakes up in a basement. June wakes up and she's ready for the workday. 5 in the morning is when she leaves for work. That's insane. That's so early. And as she's getting ready for work, she's kind of remembering what happened the night before. Last night, June had this really weird feeling when she was at home. She's sitting at home. She had this really weird feeling that there was someone outside of her house. She can just tell. She just knows someone is outside of her house. That would be a super creepy feeling to have. And so she gets up. Like, you'd let it sit for a while, right? It wouldn't be the second you got it, you jump up. But she lets it sit for a bit, and then she goes, no, I think I should check. Like, this is... something could seriously be wrong here. So she gets up and she looks out the window. She doesn't see anybody. Sure, she checked a couple windows, kind of peering into the backyard, peering on the side of the house, but there's no one out there. Just a funny feeling she got. Well, now it's the next morning and she's getting ready for work, and that was a weird sensation, but whatever. It was nothing was there, nothing to worry about, and she walks out to her car. Again, it's super early, 5 in the morning. She walks out to her car in the driveway, and as she's getting into her car, she feels something underneath her feet. Like, as she's stepping into the car, as she's getting into where, like, gas pedal, brake pedal, all that part is, the driver's side of the car, her foot squishes down on something, and she said it was like stepping on a bicycle inner tube. Like, it was just squishy. She also said as she's stepping into the car, she heard the sound, she could only describe it as if you were rubbing a balloon. So as she's stepping in, she feels her foot kind of press down on something rubber, and she hears a... So she immediately looks down, expecting to see a balloon, right? There's nothing. There's nothing underneath her feet at the driver's side of the car. She's driving down the road, and she hears in the back seat the sound of papers being rustled around. Do I have paper here? You like that? This is now an ASMR podcast. Anyways, she hears that noise, and she's like, it must just be my imagination. Because last night I was imagining someone was outside my house. Today I imagined there was a balloon in my car. I don't know what that was all about. I'm hearing stuff kind of rustling in the back seat. She just keeps driving. But then at one point as she's driving, while she's driving, she has to take a sharp turn. And when she takes a sharp turn, she hears a loud thump in the back seat of the car. A sound that she could only describe as if someone was laying in the back seat. If someone was laying in the back seat of your car and you took a sharp turn and their head hit the door. So at that point, she looks in her rearview mirror. And what she sees in the back seat of her car, there's a gray alien laying there. She slams her brakes, jumps out of the car, and then opens up the back door, and the back seat's empty. She's standing there by the side of the road trying to figure out what possibly could have happened. She shuts the back door, hops in the driver's seat, and continues on her way to work. But the experience left her very badly shaken. Be like, hey, June, how's your morning going? She's all pale. She's like, they have a bunch of balloons. It's like someone's going to a party. She's like, no, the noise. It's an invasion. She makes it to work, but she's badly shaken. I found this story on thinkaboutitdocs.com. They got it from something called Miami Skyscan. Now, if you type that in now, you'll find like real estate organizations and stuff like that. I'm assuming at some point it used to be a website or a newsletter or something like that based on the title, Miami Skyscan, Florida UFO Encounters is where I think that would qualify as. And if you think about it, there'd probably be a bunch if we look at aliens as visiting from another world and they're interested in our technology. I mean, if you're flying around Cape Canaveral, a pretty good place to be if you're trying to keep an eye on humans and their space exploration purposes, goals, and all that. It's a crazy story if you think about it. Now, obviously, like, the stakes are pretty low. I mean, I guess something could have really bad could have happened to this lady if the gray alien jumped out and got her. You gotta wonder what the gray alien was doing in the car in the first place. Was that what she was sensing outside the house? The way I was kind of piecing it together was, yeah, there was a gray alien outside of her house. And then, when she's getting in her car, the gray alien's arm, or I would assume arm, right? Their arms are longer than their legs, generally speaking. She stepped on its arm in the front seat, and that was the rubbery feel. And then the rustling papers was him in the back seat. It's interesting, even as I was telling this narrative, I kept looking back at my notes. I edited all that out, obviously, but when she hears the rustling paper sounds, it doesn't specifically say or not say that she look into the backseat of the car and not see anything at that point? Did she just disregard it? In the version I just told you, I said, I kind of sidestepped it, right? I didn't necessarily say she didn't or she didn't. I said she was just, through the events of the night, she just figured it was all in her head, which is actually what they say. But dismissed it as her imagination is what it says on here. So I'm assuming she didn't look back in the seat. Because that's a big difference in the narrative, really. If she looked back in the seat when she heard the papers rustling and saw nothing, but then when she took the sharp turn and bonked the alien's head and looks in the back seat and she sees the alien, that does mean that this alien would be cloaked. This alien was invisible in some way. But it wasn't. But we don't know, right? If she looked in the backseat, saw nothing, looked into the backseat second time, saw an alien, that's a different level of technology versus the alien was back there the whole time. She just didn't bother to look. But it's an interesting story because this is an alien story where the stakes are so low, but the terror ratio is so high. Because what we have here is, I think about all the time, I do this all the time. I sit in a recliner most of the day when I'm working on the podcast or watching YouTube. And there are times when I sit down and I feel something underneath the recliner. I feel that it's not rocking right. And I go, huh? What? The first thing I do is go, oh no, did I crush something important? You're like, Jason, how many important things do you have on the ground? Too many. But I'll sit down in my chair and it goes, makes this weird noise. And I'm like, what? And then I'll look and it's a Diet Mountain Dew 20-ounce plastic bottle that had rolled off of my table underneath my chair. So when I sat down, it went, and it won't go down all the way. The chair won't go down all the way. It won't lean back all the way. And so I go, whew, it was just litter. It was just litter in my own house. Whew, that was a close one. Think about all the times you do that as well. You're like, Jason, no, I clean up after myself. I don't have garbage. I don't have empty bottles rolling around my house like tumbleweed. No, Jason, only you and 10-year-olds have that problem who don't clean their room. Think about all the times that you've gone to sit down and it doesn't feel right. You're like, Jason, that's the most paranormal thing you've ever said. Nobody else does that. I'm sure that other people, from time to time, when they sit down, they feel something's not right. I'm sure of it. Okay, here's an example for normal people then. Imagine that you are leaving your house or trying to get in your house. It has something, it's house related. It's your front door and you go to open the door and it feels jammed. The door wasn't jammed the last time that you used it, but this time it feels like your key takes a little bit extra, and even when your key's in there and you turn the knob, you kind of have to push a little bit more to finally get in. I'm not talking about when your door is always, stuck or jammed, but sometimes that happens and it's not normal. And we do clock it in our head and go, oh, that's weird. Like as we're trying to get in, we put a little more force in it, just a small amount, right? It's not like it's barricaded shut, but what if on the other side of that door, there's a gray alien trying to keep you out? Just for a second. Or what about those times when you're eating something and you bite into something really hard and you think you broke a tooth? So then you check and you didn't break a tooth. What if there was an alien? What if there was an alien in there? I don't know. What I'm trying to say is that I do think this is scary because there are times where we will step on things or sit in chairs and there's garbage. It's like Templeton the rat. Sit in chairs and garbage had rolled under the chair and you look down and you go, oh, that's a green water bottle. But then there are times when I sit down in the chair and I rock back and I can't figure out why it's feeling wrong. Something doesn't feel right about it. And I'll look and I'll go, nope, it's not that. It's not that pile of garbage. Let me check the pile of garbage on the right side of the chair. Look over there. Nope. Left and right side, just normal garbage. But my chair's still wiggling weird. And then I just kind of adjust it, and then I rock back and forth. And I was like, there it goes. Back there's an alien. He's like, my arm. Bleep blorp, save me. This 290-pound man just sat on my arm. What was I doing back here? I'm from an advanced species somewhere deep in the galaxy. Why was I hiding behind this giant man's chair? It's all, his arm's completely ruined. He's like, do you have technology to save this? They're like, we have technology to save a lot of wounds, but that one's particularly gnarly. Where were you guys? Where were you behind that guy's chair? It's like, I don't know. It seemed like a good place to hide. What if, right? What if those little minor inconveniences or weird hiccups, and we turn and we look and it's nothing? What if that is the cause of alien intervention? It's funny because this is the type of story that I think people who listen to this podcast are, for the most part, I think across the board, are mentally well-balanced people. This is the type of story that you could really let spiral out. If you did start to think that every single time, let's say you walk into your house and you're walking around a bit and then a box falls over in your house, you might think that was an alien. Or if you're walking down the street, this is a good one, right? You're walking down the street and you almost trip and you look back and there's nothing there. Maybe it was an alien's arm. Maybe it was an alien. An invisible alien sprawled out on the pavement. He's like, studying Earth's culture, one ant at a time. You know what I mean? Like, this could really trip you up. You could start to think that all of these weird sensations we have are alien related. But it's funny that I say that because I say, you know, you guys are all a pretty well mentally balanced group of people. I think there would be a division if you experience those things. If you walked in your house and a box fell over, I think some of you guys don't believe in any of this stuff, right? You just find the show entertaining. But I think some of you guys would go, oh, I think most people would say that was a ghost. I think most people who do believe in the paranormal, if something got pushed over, I think even if they felt something touch their back, they would assume it was a ghost if they thought they were already living in a haunted house or just believed in the paranormal. But in this case, she turned around and she'd actually seen the alien. And had she not seen, this is another interesting thing, all those bizarre things, thinking someone was outside of her house, stepping on something rubbery, making a balloon sound, rustling of papers, and taking the sharp corner and hearing the sound of someone bonking their head against the side of the door. Had all those things happened, but she had not seen the alien, she never would have reported this, obviously. We experience weird stuff like that all the time. It's not reportable. You want to go to work and be like, guys, gather around, I got a story to tell you. Today I was walking down the street and I tripped, and I turned around and there was nothing on the ground. Yes, you idiot. Happens to everyone. No, but then I heard the sound of rustling papers. They're like, get to work. Go get to work. You wouldn't even think about it. But then you go, I saw an alien in my car. Which, again, I doubt she told her boss that. I don't think she told the people at work. You won't believe what happened to me. Saw an alien in the backseat of my car. You would definitely keep this story hidden for quite a while. But it's an interesting story. You wonder how many of the minor, seemingly unrelated incidents we have throughout a given day or week or month may actually be alien in nature. And here's the thing, probably none of them, right? I'd say for the vast majority of people, it's not anything at all. But for June, living in Winter Park, Florida on October 8th, 1998, it was alien related. All of it. And the creepy thing about alien stories that we have, that we don't see in ghost stories or anything like that, is she says she sensed something outside her house. She checked and there was nothing there. There was something there. The aliens were there. And she couldn't see them. And I can almost guarantee that that night they did something to her. And she doesn't remember it. Alien stories are very rarely as cut and dry as they seem to be. If you encounter an alien and it's kind of standing out in the bushes and then you go, what in the world? And then you blink and it's gone. You can tell people, hey, I saw an alien one day. I was out hunting in the bushes, saw a gray alien pop up in the bushes. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. That's just the part you remember. That's the creepiest thing about alien stories. Sometimes these stories are so weird and they remember all the weird details, but sometimes it literally is someone waking up in the middle of the night, looking out their window and seeing a gray alien. And then they'll say, and then I blinked and the alien was gone, and I stayed up all night because I was too terrified to go back to sleep. That's not what happened. That's the part you remember. And we're going to take another look at that tomorrow. We're going to take a look at a truly terrifying alien encounter story where the family tells themselves, we got away just in time. But that's not what happened. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is at DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal conspiracy and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.